Something huge is brewing for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a recent rumor and report has dropped surrounding one player that has fans very intrigued. And as Brad Treliving continues to survey for his next move, this recent report has fans fired up. But to write that down as well as discuss some interesting updates ahead of what's going to be a crazy next few weeks. Before we get into it all, if you're a part of that 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been truly unbelievable. There's a lot to go over today, and obviously the Leafs have been involved in a lot of trade talks, but this is a guy we have yet to discuss on this channel, and it is something that is crucial to obviously for Brad Treliving to make a move, but this trade in particular could be crucial going forward for the Leafs. You can see here, Maple Leafs trade pitch sends recently signed youngster to the Wild. Now, I want to dive into this one because we know reports have come out recently that the Leafs are going to make a move before the regular season starts. That's not really the surprise here. However, this is interesting, and you can see we'll dive into some of the some of the reasoning, and then we'll dive into the trade. Given some of the veterans on the roster, the Leafs are still in a decent position to compete, but obviously they want to make another move. And despite the uncertainties of what the Leafs want to do, there's been some rumors surrounding Mats Zuccarello. Now, Darius, this one is interesting, and the trade is Zuccarello for Robertson and a 2027 second-round pick. Now, this one, there's a little bit of contingency there. I want to get your thoughts on this. The Wild, they get Nick Robertson and a second. The Leafs get an older player in Mats Zuccarello. There's been some rumblings, around about the Wild, obviously being open for trades, and specifically regarding Mats Zuccarello. The Leafs now being linked to him by a writer. It is interesting, and one that I think makes a good bit of sense here. And I think the Leafs, at the end of the day, the more we look at these trades, Nick Robertson's name keeps coming up because I think, based on all these reports, he probably has actual value, compared to some of the other players like Calle Yarncroke and David Kampf, who are a little bit older and carry a bit more salary.
Yeah, I don't think the Leafs want to straight up just trade Nick Robertson because they think he's bad or he doesn't have a spot on this team, right? I think that he does have some value, and there's a lot of teams that could use a player like that around the league. So obviously, if there is no interest, there's zero interest in David Kampf for Calle Yarncroke, then you're going to be looking at a situation where maybe you're trading Bobby McMahon or Nick Robertson. Obviously, in this scenario, I think, there's a lot to this. There's a couple layers, and I think Mats Zuccarello on the surface, if he comes in, yes, he's a smaller player, but I think that you can win with this player. He would definitely help the Toronto Maple Leafs. He can play in your top six. He can play in different situations. So I think that it makes a lot of sense. And in return, the Minnesota Wild get a great young scorer that they could use because they're trying to get younger anyway. So I think that, that makes a lot of sense. There's a bit of a framework there. To me, though, I am a little reluctant about the Leafs. Yes, they need a top six player, right? All of these things are true that we've been talking about the last little while. A guy that, could play in different situations would be awesome to play on the wing as well in the top six. But ultimately, I am hesitant about adding guys who are nearing the end of their career or in their 30s or in their mid 30s. And if you look at the last 5 seasons, Zuccarello has taken a bit of a dip. He was still hovering around, especially the last couple of years, a point a game player, which is very impressive. Obviously, great playmaker. We were talking about that. Maybe a guy who would set up Nylander, right? Obviously, they have Michelli. We don't know exactly where he's going to fit into the lineup in terms of line one or line two. But if you look at Zuccarello, he's a guy that could set up either Austin Matthews or William Nylander on either line. So I think that could be very interesting. I think it'd be an interesting fit on line two. But again, I do think you can win with this player, but he's a little bit older. What does that look like heading into the future? You're giving up a pretty decent young player as well that I think the Leafs, if they, don't have to trade him, if they're not pinned into a corner, I feel like they would like to hang on to him and have him play on the third line. So it's going to get very interesting as we, creep closer towards this season, because I feel like the Leafs, they want to make a move. And I think in order to do that, obviously they got to move some salary out. So a trade is coming. I just don't think that the plan is move Max Domi into the top six and then just go into the season. Because right now they could do that. They're cap compliant, right? They wouldn't really have to worry about that. But I do think they want to make a move. And is it Zuccarello? I think, again, he would help the team, but he is a little bit older.
Yeah, and I would do this trade in a heartbeat. I'm not super high on Nick Robertson. The interesting and the scary part, rather, is the second round pick, because that's ammo that you're giving up then in potential moves in the trade deadline, which is obviously going to be a crucial one. But you're getting a guy who, you mentioned it, aging a little bit. He's still almost a point a game player, and you would basically be upgrading the Nick Robertson spot, and wherever you want to put that, whether that be in the third line, the fourth line, some people are crazy, the second line, you're upgrading it, and he would be a good playmaker. I just think these are the type of deals, and the reason we say something big is brewing here, we know the Leafs are going to make a move. I truly believe it now, especially over what we've been hearing, even from the Elliot Freeman latest 32 Thoughts podcast. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a guy like Nick Robertson or Bobby McMahon, who we've discussed, on the channel multiple times, because those are the two guys that actually have upside for, other teams. McMahon's coming off a 20-goal season. Nick Robertson has had, seasons where, I mean, one season, and even two, I guess last year to a degree, but even, the Sheldon Keefe year before that was better than his last year's season, even though he's in the dog cage, where he has potential and he's a lot younger. And for the Wild, I mean, you'd be getting Nick Robertson on a very good deal. And that 1-year contract that he signed, there's no risk. It's not like he signed even for 2 or 3 million, which still wouldn't be bad in a rising cap, but he's at 1.8. I like it. Now, Matt Zuccarello, 37 years old. Now, let's keep that in mind as well. And the reason I say I would do it is because I don't see, at least based on what we hear now, like an avenue for the Leafs to open up many more spots anyway, whether it be Cal Yarncrook or David Kampf. And the second round pick's a little scary for a 37-year-old, but I think if you're going to try to win it, may as well try to win it now. And you'd obviously, would you regret giving up that second and Nick Robertson? Maybe, but you have to think about value then. And what could that second round pick get you at the trade deadline? It got, Scott Lawton last year and Brandon Carlo for essentially, 3 first-round picks. If you want to include Fraser Minton as a value of 3 first-round picks, you do a deal like this in the offseason when there's less competition, you might be better off. And this would be a rental 1-year guy, and he might even retire after next year for all we know.
Yeah, I think if you're going out to get Matt Zuccarello, it's a win now move. You have to win this season. That's why you would make that move, because he might even retire at the end of this contract, right? At the end of this year, he's 38 years old. And obviously I do think that he could still help this team. And if he was playing on, one of the first 2 lines, he would put up a ton of points still, and he would set up, obviously, a great setup guy. He's played in high stakes games before. So I'm not worried about that stuff. The fact that he's a little bit smaller, like he's played in these high stake games and he's looked good. So I think that, that could make a lot of sense. But again, you're trading Nick Robertson, who is a really decent young scorer, right, in this in the league. And I know a lot of people are going to laugh at that. I feel like it's 70-30 at this point amongst the fan base that want to see Nick Robertson gone. But I feel like there is still a use for Nick Robertson on this team if they decide to keep him. And even if they don't, I wonder if you package him in a different trade to go get a guy that has more term, probably a little bit younger, can play on the wing as well. I think, again, we're just drawing up the perfect player at this point, but, there's other options around the league. So I wonder if you kind of save that ammunition with Nick Robertson if you do want to move off of him for a position of need and you look somewhere else instead of Matt Zuccarello. So it's an interesting idea. I think that it could help the team in the immediate, but then when you're looking towards the future, man, you're giving up a 2nd-round pick. You're giving up Nick Robertson, who's a young guy, for probably 1 year of Matt Zuccarello. And if it doesn't go well again, you're back to the drawing board next season. You still don't have the cupboard stocked up, and it could be that could spell trouble for the Maple Leafs. So interesting idea. Ultimately, I don't think they do it, but I do ultimately think that a move is coming before the start of the season, because this roster, to me, while I do think it would compete and it would make the playoffs, they're missing one more piece.
Yeah, they obviously have a better idea of value than, all of us, but I tend to agree. The second round pick is a scary thing for me, which is I don't think Nick Robertson has second round pick value, obviously. So I think the second round pick is emptying the cupboard more is kind of what scares me a little bit heading into the deadline, might limit their flexibility. But if this is, the move they have to make to get another top 6 wing and they head into the offseason, there's no other options out there, and this is the trade that's on the table, I think I'd do it given any other scenarios. But let us know down below. I'm sure there's a lot of people who disagree with me right now writing your angry comments. So I'll make sure to read them all below and have all your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.